Hi, it's Sandy Parker, and welcome to Crafting for Almost Everyone. Today we're going to be doing something with edge punches. For those of you who have these in your stash and you haven't used them in a while because you're not that great at using them or you just forgot about them, this video is for you. First thing I'm going to talk about is if you have hand strength, which types to buy. The ones that I find are easiest to use are ones that don't have a big pattern. In this case, you're only going to punch out that little scallop. That's all that punches out. Whereas in this case, you're punching all these tiny little diamonds. So this one will be more difficult to punch than this one. Then you have this punch, and these are EK Success or Stampin Up punches. They're both made by the same company. This one is basically a ribbon punch. And the way you know that usually is it has like a line in the bottom and the top. So let's cut that one first. Most people, when they are cutting these, I'll show you how most people do this. They start in the center of their punch and they go like, oh, I got a paper in there, and they go like this. They've centered it. And keep in mind, there's a lot to punch here. So I'm going to turn it on its side, and I'm going to use my wrist rather than my hand or my foot. Like I said, these are not the easiest things to punch because there's a lot of space you're cutting out. It'll punch out like this. Now I'm going to move my punch over. And if you don't know how to use these punches, you see this image on the side, you think to yourself, what's the point of that? Well, there's a really good point for that. You're going to put your paper in that you've already cut, and you're going to line it up with those so that you're covering exactly that image. You follow that? And then you want to hold it in place and punch. Okay, I'm going to have to put it on the floor again. Sorry. This did exactly what I wanted it to do. When you're cutting these, and you do exactly what I did, you're starting in the center, you're going to end up with maybe a weird edge, like the top or the bottom. Let's say you cut this to the exact length you needed for your card, and then you did that, and you said to yourself, well, that's going to look great. Here's the alternative way to doing it. If you want to have it work, for the most part, this will work for you. Take a longer strip of paper and start with that. Because this is going to make it so that when you punch it out, you can use the portion that will fit the whole design on your paper if it's possible to do that. So I'm going to start at this end. Wait, let me show you something else on here. If you look, hopefully you can see this. I don't know if you can see this. There's a little mark right there and right there. Those are the edges of your punch, of where it punches. We're going to put this paper in so that it's right up to that line. You see that? Let me make the line bigger so you can really see it. Do the same on this side so you know exactly where the line is. Not going to be straight because you know that's not how I roll. But at least you'll be able to see where the line is. Okay, so you see the line? That's where your punched image is going to be. So I'm going to start at the end of my card. And I'm going to punch it on the floor because this is a pretty hefty design. I'm sure I said this before, but this is a ribbon punch. So it's going to punch out the entire piece. It's not going to leave it attached to its bottom if you do the whole card base. So let me snip the edges off so that you can see what it's going to look like. And then I'll explain to you why you do a longer strip like this. Alright, first thing I'm going to do, so it's not confusing, is I'm going to snip off this edge. I've got all kinds of gunk on this pair of scissors because I was having trouble with my Nouveau drops coming out, so I had to cut the lid off. Didn't go well. This one's an angled cut. Okay. So that's the entire piece. What you're going to do is you're going to get your punched image. This is just for demonstration. I'm not attaching this to the card. What you're going to want to do is you're going to want to try a couple different placements. I don't know if you can see this, but when I moved it down that much, now all of a sudden it fits directly in this section of my card. So this would make it so it goes across the whole card. If I did it this way, I have half of a, I don't know if you can see that. I have half of a cupcake on this side, and I don't like that. If you want your image to be perfect for whatever you're doing, this is what I recommend you doing. Cut a longer strip and then move it around until you like the way it looks. See, every time I move it, I'm getting partial images on this end. Let's see if I did this very last one. This isn't bad. So there's the whole strip. See how much better it looks? You could, and then you could color underneath it. You could put other papers underneath it, but that is how I like to punch long pieces that go across an image that is that has a lot of detail that you're punching through. Again, this takes a lot more strength than this one does. So let me show you this one and the issues you have with it. It's very similar in that if you'd punch it like they tell you to, this is how they basically tell you to do it. Well, you're gonna, this would be for on the edge of a card. A lot of places say, oh, you just center it and then it'll be perfect every time. That's never worked for me. I don't know why it's never worked for me, but it doesn't. So what I like to do, you can do this two different ways. You can either start by putting it on the back so that it's right up to the edge of that first scallop and squeeze. Let's hope I can do this one. Then we're just going to line it up like you always do, making sure that your scallops are underneath. Oh, the other thing you can't do is you can't put it all the way so that you see that part that's not punched. You can't put it in there so that shows. You want to go maybe 2 or 3 scallops from the end so that you're sure that you've got enough. Trust me when I tell you paper punches have become my nemesis because I can only punch them on the floor most of the time. And the other thing is I had all kinds of paper punches, but the ones the edge punches, but I found that I couldn't use any of the Martha Stewart's, and the Fiskars ones were too tough for me to punch, and basically the only ones I could punch were these, and it was frustrating, but it's the way it works. If you lay it on, let's see if this is right. Yeah, this is right. Let's say that I punched this normally, and I started out with this half punch on the end. That isn't going to work for me. So what I do is, again, I cut a longer piece of paper, and I start at this end, and then in this case, no matter what I do, it's not going to be it's not going to end up being a full diamond, or excuse me, a full scallop on this end. So I think this is 5.5 inches. Let me make sure. It is 5.5 inches. Let me cut this to 5.25 inches, and then we'll see if we can make it work. Because sometimes it's just a matter of that 1/4 inch that would be a layering layer, if that made sense. If you get rid of the little bit of excess, maybe we can make it work. Make sure it is 5.25 now. If it's a little bit off, we can fix that. So then let's do it again. See, now we've got it straight across. Perfect. That's exactly what we want. So that will help you too. If you're going to do this, you want to do a whole strip, as I said, because you can always use the extra for some little project if you really are intent on keeping it, because that's the excess on this would work for any project if you were trying to do like this little part on this side of the card. Anyway, then you have the card bases the punches that don't really matter. If you have a punch that has no real rhyme or reason to the pattern, and I'm going to show you that on this one, like this one, you can see it's only an edge punch. It's not a ribbon punch, and the difference is this. if you're looking at a punch, let's say you go to a garage sale and somebody's selling a lot of punches and they have this one. Do you see at the bottom of this punch, it's all exposed metal? You know, there's the metal stops and then there's an exposed area. Same at the top. That's going to give you the ribbon. On one that is an edge, that's just going to make an edge cut, you see that you have the gap on the metal at the top, but you don't at the bottom. That will give you just an edge that has a cute design. I started in the middle. And we're going to move off to one side a little bit. And we go down this way. The hardest thing to do is when you get down to this end, making sure that you keep it in there straight, because you're going to have to make sure that that paper that's attached to the top is, this piece doesn't take you off kilter. So there is your edge. Again, it doesn't really matter that much, but if you can see down here, you have that little bit that is not a full cut. Let me see if this is 5.5. So unfortunately, if you were doing a 5 1/4 inch card, that would be like this layer. You're going to have an uneven design on this end. The way you get around that, I think I already explained this, but let me explain it one more time. The way you make sure that you've got this so that it will work perfectly for you is to cut it on a bigger strip of paper. So here's how you're going to do this. You're going to put your paper so that either that edge that came with the paper punch is the one you're using, because it's a straight edge, or you can move your paper down and make sure that this end you have a whole circle on this end. So let me cut it right there. I did have a little bit of an issue when I punched this because I got a funky edge. So then you have complete circles on both ends. Or if you didn't like this edge, you could have moved it until you had full circles. But that is what I wanted to show you about edge punches, because I think edge punches can be confusing and they can be frustrating. So I hope that you enjoyed this, that you give it a thumbs up and subscribe, and please tell your friends about me on social media, because you know I love that. And thanks so much for watching. Bye-bye.